right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening with the Centerton Board of Zoning Adjustments for February 16th of 2021 with a roll call.
I'll just go ahead and start by saying Tony Davis is absent this evening. Jerry Harris at this time is as well. So Amber Beal.
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Ben Lewis.
Here.
John Sessoms.
Here.
Devin Murphy.
Here.
Craig Langford.
Here.
And Jeff Seifarth.
And Jeff's here as well. No minutes this evening.
And back up just a moment. Jerry just was made a panelist, so you should see him on there now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey,
All right,
I'm here.
Thank you.
all right, we got you accounted for. All right, no minutes to approve. Under old business, we do have a public hearing, and this is for the variance 2009. It's lot 9 of the Diamond Estates, the Alexander property. It's at 1221 Hope Street, and 11-foot encroachment of a covered deck into the existing 25-foot yard setback. Just as a reminder, it is R2. It is a 0.20 acre. It was part of a public hearing that was back on 119, and it was tabled. And so there's been some follow-up with that. So I would like to go ahead and entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is John. I'll motion to open the public hearing for variance 20-09, lot 9, Diamond Estates.
Joey, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Is the applicant here to give us an update? Diane, do you know, or are you just going to cover it for them?
We do have a person that's on a telephone that may be Barbara. I know we sent her the information to join today. So if the person with the phone number that ends in 204, if you are Barbara, I have allowed you to speak. If not, I will happily cover it.
Hello,
Hi, is that Barbara?
it is.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi.
Barbara. I know we got the letter from Carroll Electric. Any update to the plans, or do you still want to go forward with trying to do the same plans?
Well, the update for us is that we got legal with the Carroll Electric rules. And I looked through the presentation and the paperwork that were attached in my email, and the latest Carroll approved layout was there, the way that we'd like to do it. I know I've never really talked to you guys. We really do want to attach this to the back of our house. I have both neighbors who have, I didn't turn these letters in, but the neighbors on both sides of me who will be close, or closest to me to support us in this. We will feel it's just, will make it so much nicer. Of course, that's what everyone wants when they move here to Centerton, to have a little bit more space out there to walk off without. Right now we have 3 steps down just to get in the backyard. And this means nothing, but when we bought the property, the builder promised us no steps in this house. So I try not to go back there, but we love the horses and we love the pasture behind us. It was one of the reasons we bought the house, was to be able to sit out there and just enjoy the view. So, yeah, it's hard for me to get back there, but, we don't have enough for, under your rules, to make it a legal request. But it is something that we would really love to have happen, where we get quite a bit of wind back here and the rain comes up and hits our house. So that covering will not only make it nicer to be out there, it'll make it safer for the whole back area of the house when we have a little of inclement weather like we kind of do right now. So is there anything else you want to know about us? It is something that we in our retirement would really just love to sit there and be outside.
I don't think we have any other questions yet, but if you'll just hang on the line for us, we may
I will.
come back, okay?
Okay.
All right, this is a public hearing, so at this time, what I'd like to do is go ahead and open it up to the public. And I think, Nicole, you're driving. I kind of went out of order here, but I know you have a handy dandy slide that shows that someone can either press the raise the hand, and it would allow them to speak once they're recognized, and or if they're on the phone. There you go, thank you. Or if you happen to join by phone, you can press *9, and that'll also raise your hand, and then we typically would call out your phone number and then allow you to speak. We do ask that if you wish to speak, that you give us your name and your address. It does make it easier for the minutes and for Todd as he's doing that. So with that, I would open it up to the public if there's anyone that wishes to speak. Diane, do you see anyone that wishes to speak?
So far, I do not see anyone.
Okay. We'll go ahead and do a second call then for anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the variance on the Lot 9 at Diamond Estates.
Still no one at this time.
And we'll do a third and final call.
No one has raised a hand.
With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Jerry, I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right. Diane, do you want to go ahead and just take us to the updated letter from Carol?
Yes, we did finally receive confirmation from Carroll Electric, and they do approve that they can extend no more than 5 feet into the 20-foot easement. And this will ensure that no structures are within 15 feet of the center line of their facilities. So basically what they could do and what the plan is a 9.5-foot deck with a 6-inch overhang. And this will remain outside of their 15 feet that they do require to be clear of any easements. Any kind of structure. Now, Lorraine did bring up earlier that, if this is allowed for this particular project to encroach into this utility easement and also encroach into the building setback, people on either side, because they do also have sloping yards, could come back with the same request. So that's just a point for y'all to consider tonight also. Other than that, everything was the same since you tabled it. Just instead of them requesting up to 11 feet, they're just requesting up to 10 feet. So that would just reduce the building setback to 15 feet, which is down from the, is an increase since the 14 feet from last time. So that's the only change on this one. And now, as we discussed before, if they could do some sort of covering that was not attached to the house, then no variance would be required for this.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners before we go through the fact-finding elements?
So just to clarify, Jeff, the difference between this proposal and the last is 1 foot, right, of the easement and the approval of Carol signing off on that. Right.
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, that is correct, John.
And I have one more. How much into the setback is it getting? I can't find that information. I might be overlooking it.
No, I don't think I specifically stated that in there. They are going 5 feet into the Carroll Electric easement. So there will still be 15 feet of that remains. I mean, it was
Oh, I was
stated
ask-
just
I was asking about the
basically.
building setback.
At the building setback, how much they're encroaching into the building setback?
Yep.
They are encroaching 10 feet.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
Joy,
seven-
I think the way it was last time, the building setback was the back door.
That's
It was-
all right.
Correct.
Just making sure I recollected.
Yes, you are correct. The house is, as the building department said, is a string lot. So the buildable area is entirely covered by the home.
Any other questions? Let's go ahead and fast forward, Nicole, if you can, to the fact finding. And we'll go through these. All right, let's go ahead and go through these. So the finding of facts are to be used to clearly establish the basis for granting or denying the approval of the requested variance from the Centerton zoning code per the section 140404C. So the preservation of intent that the variance, if granted, is consistent with the purpose and intent of the regulations for the district in which development is located. No variance shall have the effect of permitting a use in any district that is not stated permitted use, accessory use, or conditional use of that particular district. The applicant did respond, and none of these are updated, but we'll go ahead and go through them again. But the applicant did respond. The property is zoned and will remain single-family dwelling, consistent with Title 14. The variance is requested for a planned 10 by 36 covered deck, has been reviewed and approved by the neighborhood associations. They have an architectural committee. The neighbors, as Barbara had stated as well, 2 neighbors on each side have said, okay. The deck and extension of the existing roof line for which the variance is requested does not alter the nature for which the property is zoned. Accordingly, the variance, if granted, is consistent with the purpose and intent of the regulation for the district in which the dwelling is located. The staff findings, this area is intended for residential neighborhoods with suitable lot area for single family and 2 family dwellings. Again, according to the 14, the intent of the zoning district is also to maintain the required setbacks, lot widths, and lot areas consistently across the community. Uncovered or detached porches are considered accessory structures and may be allowed by code within 7 feet of the rear property line. So again, none of those change. And although I do agree that it is certainly will still be a single family, but of course it is going to encroach on the easement. What are you guys' thoughts on this one? Anything changed from the last time?
Jeff, I'm at the same place. I don't think there's much change.
What did we vote on last time? Are we just going to scrap that and just go for it again? I don't recall what we said last time, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't remember on each one of the fact findings, and then we ultimately tabled it. So I just don't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't go back and review the notes from it, unfortunately.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I'll throw this out there. Preservation of intent. The zoning code is a part of this, and I would feel that the intent of the zoning code, with the building setback, is to not have any encroachments into the building setback. So that I kind of got a little heartburn on that. I don't know that this really causes any issues for anybody, but looking forward, I don't know what kind of implications this would have for future requests.
Okay. I don't disagree. And I know we always talk about that, whenever we discuss this one. And again, we don't have to agree or disagree on, one or all, simply that as we consider the granting or the denying, these are the things that we need to consider. So, yes, it would still be a single family dwelling, but the single family dwelling, in my opinion, takes up the building lot, right, or the building area. I mean, and that's the reason that we have those. So I think on this one, the intent part of it still being single family is there. It's the fact that it would be then outside of the the building area, right? Would you all agree with that? I don't know if that helps Todd out in his description of what we said, but that's essentially I think where we're at on this one. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Exceptional circumstances, that exceptional, extraordinary, or unusual conditions or circumstances applying to the lot, parcel, structure, or intended use exist that do not apply to other properties or uses in the same district, which are unique to the individual property under consideration. The applicant's response, the property for which the variance is requested, has a severe and steep downward slope that apply to this lot. The severe downward slope in the backyard is not a feature that uniformly applies to other homeowners in the neighborhood. The elderly couple are respectfully requesting the variance to construct a covered deck, which will be more than 25 feet from the utility easement. Now that changed a little bit. Will allow the homeowner to safely enjoy the area behind their home. I also think it was discussed previously that there are two or three other lots in this area that also have a slope to it, if I remember correctly. So it's not just one property that has this slope. The staff findings, the property does appear to have a downward slope, 10 to 12% toward the rear of the lot. It may create a safety hazard for an individual with mobility issues. However, the concrete or hard surface may be allowable as an accessory structure by code. The variance is required due to the permanent nature of the proposal attaching to the residential structure. Anybody's thoughts change on this one? Okay, so I'm going to say that even then we didn't agree there was necessarily an exceptional circumstance. Yes, there is a slope to the backyard, but the fact is there are some others that are in that neighborhood as well. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. The next one, hardship, not grounds for the variance, that the special conditions and or circumstances do not result from the intended or proposed actions of the applicant. No variance may be granted solely on the basis of economic gain or loss. The applicant's response, they're saying it's not applicable. The staff findings, staff does not feel the exceptional circumstances resulted from the applicant's intended actions, not that the request is solely a basis on economic gain or loss. And I would agree with that. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's, economic gain or loss in regards to, this particular request. Anybody disagree with that? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Preservation of property rights, that little or interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of substantial rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. The applicant's response, given the steep downward slope of the yard, a little interpretation resulting in denial of the homeowner's request for the variance would deprive the homeowner of the ability to realize the full use and enjoyment of the property consistent with others in the neighborhood. The staff findings, apart from the sloping yard, distinctive, unusual, or unique circumstances or physical features of the parcel have not been identified that would deprive the owner of substantial rights enjoyed by other properties in the neighborhood or the surrounding district. And again, I think it was pointed out that there are a couple of other lots in this particular neighborhood that do have a slope, as well. So anybody have anything different on that one? Okay, the next one, the absence of detriment, that granting the variance requested will not create substantial detriment to adjacent property or that will materially impair or be contrary to the purpose and spirit of this chapter of the public interest. The applicant's response, the homeowners have reviewed and obtained the approval by their association in the neighborhood, their architectural committee in compliance with the neighborhood covenants. The neighborhood association's architectural committee found the changes aesthetically consistent with the existing homes in the neighborhood. The homeowners discussed the plans with neighbors who did not object to the changes. Accordingly, the variance requested will not create a detriment to any adjacent property owners, materially impair, or is contrary to existing regulations to the public interest. The staff findings granting of this variance may be found to be contrary to the public interest. Zoning requirements are established to maintain consistency throughout the community and avoid arbitrary and capricious decisions. However, this request will not compromise the intended density of the R2 zoning district. And I'm really in with the staff on this one. Anybody have anything different or any discussions on this one? Okay. So with that, of course, we did get the updated letter from Carol. It does change the overall structure slightly. However, it does, offer one in the area, that would be one home in the area that would be different, considering it's outside of the building setbacks, if you will. Any other questions or discussion from any of the commissioners?
I guess, Diane, we're still on the same page where an accessory structure can be constructed outside of the building setback as long as it's not attached to the house, correct?
That is correct, but with it being, with having that Carroll Electric utility easement back there, it would still be required to be any roof, outside of their 15 feet. But correct, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it was just a patio or if it was like a deck with a pergola or something that wasn't physically attached to the house. That's where the variance comes into play on this one for the building setback.
And yeah, I guess I'm echo what Joy was mentioning earlier. I guess my only heartburn with that is basically that not compliant with the zoning code for that area. So now you set a precedence for every house on that road to do the same thing, which then takes away from the intent of the zoning of that area. So
Yeah, I agree, John. I think there's creative solutions here to make the backyard usable, whether it's regrading, leveling that out a little bit, doing something where it can be detached. I think there's a solution there, and I just have a hard time setting this precedent just for future considerations. So, yeah.
I think it would be a little different if this was no other solution. Like if this was the last, there's nothing else you could do, right?
Agreed.
Any other commissioners have any discussion points before we take a vote? All right, if there's no other discussion, there is a suggested motion following our deliberation that does involve either moving to grant or deny the request. So with that, I would entertain a motion in regards to the motion or the variance 2009 that is requested before us, Lot 9, Diamond Estates.
I'll get this one. This is John. Based on the conclusions and the findings, I move to deny the request for Barbara and Mark Alexander for a 10-foot reduction of the 25-foot building setback for Lot 9 of Diamond Estates, Phase 1.
Thank you, John. This is Joey. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to deny. We will do a roll call vote. If you vote yes, that means that you would deny. If you vote no, then that means that you would vote for granting the variance. So with that, Todd, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Jerry Harris,
No.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifler.
And Jeff's a yes as well. All right, thank you, guys. At this point, we'll go ahead and move on the agenda. There's no additional new business. There's no other business. Our next BZA will be at our 3/2/21 planning meeting, in which we will have the notes from this meeting. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Craig. I'll make the motion to adjourn the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
This is Joey. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, now we're going to move into our Centerton Planning Commission. So with that, I will call to order the Centerton Planning Commission for February 16th, 2021 with a roll call.
Tony Davis is absent, so we'll go to Jerry Harris,
Here.
Amber Beal,
Here.
Joey Engel,
Here.
Ben Lewis,
Here.
John Sessoms,
Here.
Devin Murphy,
Here.
Craig Langford,
Here.
and Jeff Seifler.
And Jeff's still here as well. Nicole, I'm going to try to go in order. So this is a public meeting. If you have your little slide, Nicole, I'll go ahead and cover the open forum part of it. So there's going to be a couple of open public hearings this evening. With that, if you joined virtually online and you wish to speak, there is a raise hand option, and you can select that and be acknowledged. Or if you join by phone, there is the opportunity to do *9, and that will raise your hand, and then we typically would call on your number to speak. We do ask that you state your name and your address for the record. It makes it a little easier on us as we go through our notes and minutes. So with that, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our 2/2/2021 meeting.
There's no discussion on the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the planning minutes from 2/2/21.
This is
This is
John.
Amber. I'll second.
Amber kind of got loud there, so we'll give Amber the second on I was getting kind of scared there, so we have a motion and second. Is anyone opposed? All right, there were no admin approvals, no old business, so we're going to go ahead and move on to new business. And with new business, we do have a public hearing. This is for rezone 20-27 Cap Nuco 1 LLC. This is Stonelay Phase 2, 8.64 acres from A1 to RTH-MF 12. And it is at 485 East Centerton Boulevard. So because this is a rezone, it is a public hearing. So I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for rezone 20-27.
It's John. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Is the applicant here just to give us a quick overview?
Yes, Doug Melton is here.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners?
Yeah. Hey, Doug, go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. You have your packet in front of you. I guess I don't have a lot of comment about the rezoning, but I did have a number of things I wanted to share with you in regards to the planned unit development. And maybe I can kind of start this discussion off now. I think you've gotten some notes from the developer that had been sent to each of you individually, and so I won't belabor it by reading those. But if you'll forgive my presumptuousness, I just want to share a little bit with you some background information on this site. It's essentially landlocked, although it has frontage along State Highway 102 or Centerton Boulevard. The presence of the creek, the floodway, and then the reinforced concrete box culvert that connects the creek to the Kissick Lake makes it conventional development nearly impossible here. And this property has sat undeveloped, unused for many, many years. My clients worked diligently over the past few years to try to do something with it and to devise a plan where he could develop it at its highest and best use, but it's just a really, really difficult piece of property. The topography of the site and then the presence of the high tension power lines that SWEPCO have makes it even more complicated trying to develop this. So in August of last year, we initiated contact with city staff about developing the property for an additional phase of the Stoneleigh Apartments, and we were encouraged to engage in some discussions with the city. And during those preliminary discussions, city staff encouraged us to consider the use of a planned use development mechanism to develop the site. And my client elected to pursue this pathway in the hopes that developing this with some townhouses would be an enhancement to the site and encourage downtown living and utilize the property a little more efficiently than it can be because of this frontage issue. So with that in mind, I don't want to belabor this, but I just want to make a few observations about Title 14 of the City Code as it relates to planned unit development, because that really goes directly to why we're rezoning this like we are. In a common sense reading of the preamble there in Title 14, to me is very educational. It's one that we looked at very carefully before we started this exercise of trying to rezone this and develop the PUD. And just want to quote a couple of highlights here. It said, these regulations do encourage and provide means for effecting desirable and quality development by permitting greater flexibility and design freedom than that permitted under the basic district regulations. And so this is something we've seen repeatedly as we've done PUDs in other cities, major cities, smaller cities. And so we elected to do this. And the result of this is supposed to be economically desirable development within the PUD. And the regulations in the PUD are designed to permit latitude in the development of the housing sites. And it says the development is found to be in accordance with the purpose and the intent of the legislation or the ordinance if it's found not to be hazardous, harmful, offensive, or otherwise adverse to environment, property values, or the character of the neighborhood or the health, safety, welfare of the community. So this was in the back of our mind as we went along and worked on trying how to develop a way to develop this most efficiently. And finally, the preamble finishes up by saying it's further intended to encourage more rational and efficient development with a relationship to public services and to encourage and facilitate the preservation of open lands. And to me, the nub of this whole exercise is that by going to the route of the PUD, the developer, or my client, is going to give up 25% of this property to green space, which is an enhancement to the community and to the city of Centerton. And in return, we expect some latitude and some relief from the underlying zoning regulations. And so we elected to look at doing a similar zoning, R3MF, which is how the apartments are zoned. And we quickly ran into some resistance. And so we opted to go with the RTHMF 12, which will allow us to do the townhouses in there. So having said all that, we've worked diligently and a long time with the staff. It's been a very frustrating experience for the staff as well as ourselves. And that's why I want to share some of the thoughts about the intent of the PUD. And I think we have approached that taking a literal and common sense reading of the PUD. And it's, I think the staff will tell you that they've been frustrated, and so have I. And we've gotten to a point where we think this is the highest and best use of this property to rezone it from the A1 to this and allow a second phase. My client does not own or is not a partner to the apartment complex next door, but they have an agreement that if we're successful in rezoning this to accommodate what we've proposed, then the apartment complex owners, which is the block funds in Kansas City, will purchase this property, and then they will do the actual development of the site. So just a little bit more background on how this is going to function. So there we have, I do have some comments and some exceptions to the requirements of the PUD, but I think you're going to cover those later. So if you have any questions going to the base rezoning, I'd be happy to answer those right now.
All right, thanks, Doug. Let's see. Diane, is this you? Do you want to go ahead and give us?
Nope, it's the other D. It's Donna.
All right, sorry, Donna.
That's all right.
You want to go ahead and give us a staff overview? And I know it's hard to confuse the two, so I'd like to keep it as much on the rezone, understanding we also need to consider the fact that there's a PUD after this, but as much as we can kind of keep it on the rezone, I think that would be good.
Can do.
Thank you.
So this request is for RTH MF12. The intent is to develop the property as a second phase of the Stoneleigh apartment complex with about 50 townhouse units. It is located at 485 East Centerton Boulevard. It is currently 2 parcels. RTH MF12 is intended for multifamily structures containing single-family dwellings, which are attached to one or more similar dwellings by a common firewall or firewalls, which in combination with other attached dwellings constitute an architectural whole on a separate lot. The parcels are currently only accessible through Stoneleigh Apartments via an entry off Centerton Boulevard, which is currently our largest commercial corridor and major focus of our recently passed comprehensive plan. It's a major arterial, and any additional improvements that we have are going to be determined with the PUD, the large-scale development plans, which will be submitted and later and coordinated with RDOT as necessary. Adjacent uses include the currently vacant commercial lots C2 owned by Walmart to the west, the currently vacant commercial lot C2 owned by Seneca Mortgage Company to the east, McKissick Creek Park to the north, which is R2, and the 2 roughly 40-acre agricultural lots A1 owned by 2 separate trusts to the south. The McKissick Creek floodway, which Doug mentioned earlier, is on approximately 350 feet of the northern portion of the northern parcel. Both parcels do have substantial tree canopy, and the southern parcel currently has an old house with several outstructures. A 120-foot existing utility easement with a 160 kilovolt transmission line bisects the two parcels. The requested zone to RTH MF12 may be considered compatible to the existing R3 district. And so the floodway does prevent direct access to Centerton Boulevard, as Doug had previously mentioned, because it is a floodway and there can't be any development in that area. It is possible that there may be some wetlands there. We have requested a wetland assessment be done. So the commercial use on this area is unfeasible prior to development to the west. So on the adopted land use plan, This area is designated as new downtown center. So according to the comprehensive plan on page 30, the new downtown center will be the city's active commercial hub. Mixed-use development will provide space for local retailers, restaurants, and entertainment providers on the ground floor, with multifamily apartments and condominiums above. Uses should be planned and developed to prioritize a vehicular access while still accommodating pedestrians. Commercial uses in this area will directly serve all of Centerton. So requested rezoning to RTH MF12 is not considered consistent with the current land use plan's designation of new downtown center, as this is primarily a commercial district and residential use is a secondary capacity. The rezone, we've only got a couple of minor comments. There's just needs to be a few corrections to the legal description prior to the ordinance going to council. And Nicole, I think there should be a page here that has the 5 comments. Are there any questions?
Not yet. There may be as we go through our discussion points. But before we go to the discussion points, I would like to open it up to the public. And again, just as a reminder, there's 2 ways for you to address the commission. One is you can raise your hand if you're virtual, or you can do *9 if you dial in, and then we can recognize you by phone number. So with that, I would entertain anyone from the public that wishes to speak in regards to the rezone 2027, which is the considered the Stonelay Phase 2. Donna, is there anyone that wishes to speak?
I see no hands.
Thank you.
No hands.
Thank you, Todd and Donna. We'll do a second call for anyone from the public that wishes to speak in regards to the rezone.
Still no hands.
And we'll do a third and final call.
Still no hands.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Ben. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Amber. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All righty. Let's go through our considerations. And again, this is the request to rezone from A1 to RTH MF12. Is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? I'd like to get some of the commissioners' opinions on this before I give my opinion, because I spent quite a bit of time on the land use plan. And I know that in the letter that we did receive, they were wondering why this was included. I don't know that we went through, at least I didn't remember this one particular parcel. So I'd like some of the commissioners' thoughts on this based on what Donna read, and of course based on anything that was provided to us, which I think is in our packet as well, around this kind of new downtown.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
I could add to that. The reason that we put it as part of the new downtown is because that piece always had we've had so much problem with the access easement. Without Stonelay granting them an access easement, it wasn't recorded on the plat like it was supposed to have been. And so the only way to get to that piece we figured was through this new downtown center. So that's why we grouped it on this side instead of with the high density.
Okay, I mean, it makes sense. So is the thought process that they would have an opportunity to connect to that maybe in the southwest corner? Or somewhere on the property?
Yes, the part that is on the higher ground, that south half, it's on higher ground, and you can get to it from even the Walmart property.
Okay.
But of course, the south is I mean, it's wetlands and non-developable that I accept maybe some encroachment, but
Okay, thanks for the
And
clarification.
Nicole, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Any chance you could pull up the county GIS and turn on the floodplain layer?
Yeah, just give me a second and I'll work
Thank
on
you. Yeah, I
that.
didn't have your number. I was gonna text you or shoot you an email.
Nicole, if you can flip to the PUD stuff, I did include a page that has the flood layer in it.
Look at Donna anticipating Joey's difficult on the fly question.
Well, yeah, it is on the fly, but I think it applies to this property. And Jeff, to answer your question, does it meet the use? No, I don't think it does. Downtown area, mixed use, more commercial foot traffic, sort of a plaza. So if you see here, it looks like north is to the left. There's not an easy way to get access to this piece of property from Centerton Boulevard. It looks like your only opportunity is going to be to get through the apartments or come all the way out to South Main Street, way to the west, to cut across the other property. So at this current time, without any sort of development there on that chunk of land, that's our downtown center, it's almost landlocked and they can only get an access through the Stoneley Apartments. Now, can they get access to Centerton Boulevard? Yeah, I mean, it would be a project and it would be a lot of time and money. And it probably doesn't make this piece of property worthwhile to build. So in my mind, there's two options here: is that it goes with the downtown area and gets access out to South Main, or it goes to Stoneley and gets access through there. So I completely understand why it was put that way, but to answer your question, no, I don't think it meets.
Okay. Any other commissioners' comments in regards to is it compatible?
Jeff, it's John. I would agree with Joy. I would say no on that, because even if you did have access through Main Street, through the downtown area, I think that negates the purpose of the downtown area, right? You don't want a lot of cars traversing through there to get to a residential neighborhood, right? That's supposed to be foot traffic. I think changing that does introduce a lot more traffic than that was intended for that downtown use area.
So let me throw this out there then, and I don't remember Nana's exact wording. I was going to write it down, but part of the downtown is also the ability for people to live and gather, and does a townhome environment that would be typically owners instead of renters, does that then make it a little more compatible, if you will, in regards to people being there, maybe not having to it wouldn't be a lot of turnover per se. Does that make it more compatible to anyone?
Yeah, Jeff, I think it's trying to fit as best as it can. It's certainly not like a warehouse going in right there or some sort of industrial type zoning. I would support it based on the proposed use and the limitations of the floodplain.
Okay.
Of note, the plan is not, I don't believe, it's intended to be phase 2 of Stoneley Apartments, so it will be one lot.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I don't think that's what we're discussing, Donna.
Okay,
I don't think that's what we were talking about. We were talking about the whole piece of property. I think Joey's last point was the fact that there's a lot of water on the, on the north side of this property by 102. So again, let's go. So the development's land use is permitted in the presented planning district. I'm sorry. Can we go back to the question again, Nicole? Put you back on the spot. I know we got you going all over the place. So is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? And I think we presented arguments both ways. Is it the exact, wording? I think the answer is no. Is it does it become compatible if it's more about the living and the gathering? Then I think that it is. So, I think we're really on both sides here. And Todd, I think we're okay in doing that as we think about, each one of the discussions. Again, we've not given a yes or no that it has to be, all 5. It's all for discussion, as we consider the rezone. So I'm going to move on.
We've had a mixed response previously. Several things we've talked about where the response from the PC has been mixed, and I'll usually present it that way.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones. And, I'm going to say that it is compatible. And, again, there's apartments. This would be a townhome. Again, the gathering spot, if you will, to a potential new downtown area, this would allow that to possibly thrive. So, I think that it is compatible. Does anybody disagree with that or any discussion on that? All right. I'm going to move on to the next one. Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and surrounding areas? And again, I think the multi, family, the townhome, again, in this area, I think it makes sense. And I do think that it would be permitted. Any discussion on that? I mean, it's very specific to townhomes. Okay. Would the rezoning provide a benefit to one landowner not to be considered for other similar properties in this area? I don't think that it provides just a benefit to this one landowner. Certainly things we would consider in the others. Of course, the difference being that this was in that designated area for the new downtown. Lorraine explained a little bit more as to why, a little bit around the landlocked portion. Of course, you got some power lines, you've got water, you've got a lot of unique pieces to this property. So in that case, it might offer a little bit of a benefit. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Jeff, sorry, son's having a meltdown in the other room. Can you repeat what you just said?
So this is one of those that, we have to look at it, I think, in a couple of different ways, and I'm going to expand a little bit. So I think we have to look at it in a couple of different ways. Would it benefit one landowner, but not be considered for the other similar properties? I think we would consider it for the other properties. The difference being that it's part of the land use, it was designated as this new downtown. But the caveat being, as Lorraine shared, kind of the reason it got put in that area was because it was somewhat landlocked and because of the terrain of the land. And then you have water, you've got, some power lines and some other things. So I think we have to consider it a little bit unique whenever we think about, does it benefit one landowner? And so that's where I think that yes, it might in a way here, but it's also has some unique parts, some pieces to this particular property is where I'm at on this one.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. And, if this were to develop separately, I don't think we would be getting a lot of yield out of this current piece of property. And I really feel like this is probably one of the better uses for this piece of property.
Okay. So the next one, if the public is opposed, why? And we had nobody from the public that spoke this evening. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
Jeff, this is Craig. I noticed on staff comments that Anna had a comment, but I didn't see that anywhere. What was her comment? Do we know that from staff?
Her comment was regarding the legal description, and it will just need to be updated before we do the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Jeff, I had one question about that, and looking at this page right here, about permitted benefit for one owner but not another. Didn't we at the last meeting have the same conversation about the most southern part of that downtown center? The landowner wanted to go from A1 to residential, and so we would be allowing this landowner to go residential but not the other, or I can't remember if that was tabled or voted on.
I think it was more for discussion around the new downtown and what it ultimately looks like. Mm-hmm. And again, I think, if we truly look at where I'm at on that, when we look at the downtown, it's designed to get people to gather. It's designed for retail. It's designed for restaurants. All of that is still to be determined as we put together a committee and decide that. So the reason that I like this is the fact that on one side of it, it really gathers people in that area, if you will. And that's just where I'm at on it. I think the one before had a little more like all residential versus this mixed, or potential of the mixed. And so this one, would be right there with it, and again, we haven't seen the full plan yet, but, ideally we would also gain some access to this property. And it may be one of the things that we, address as we go through the, the development part of it. But ideally, people would gather here, they would live here, and then of course have the ability to walk, ride their bike, do whatever they might, to get to that new downtown area. Does that help?
Yeah, and there again, I don't disagree. This would be the best use of that land. It's otherwise landlocked, right? I just wanted to make sure that we're being fair to the other landowners in that area who may not have the opportunity to turn that into residential, right?
Any other comments from staff? If there's no other comments from staff or the commissioners, then I would entertain a motion for the rezone 20-27, the Cap Nuco LLC. This is considered Stonelay Phase 2, 8.64 acres from A1 to RTH MF12.
This is John. I'll make a motion to approve the rezone 20-27, the 20-27 Cap Nuco A1 to RTH MF12.
This is Joey. I'll second.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Todd, if you'll do the roll call for me, please.
Jerry Harris,
I abstain.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
Yes. All right. Next on the agenda this evening is
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did not take I did not acknowledge that we recognize and accept the comment from staff in regards to the legal description. There were two different surveyors in here, so we intend to resolve that and acknowledge that we need to take care of that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is our second public hearing, and this is for the PUD 20-03 Stone Lay Phase 2. Again, it's at 485 East Centerton Boulevard, proposed RTH MF12, 8.64 acres, 49 townhome units. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for PUD 2003.
This is Craig. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Doug, are you going to give us any more overview on this one, or?
I certainly can. I believe you all have a copy of our concept plan here. We had started out with about 53 or 54 units in here, and as we tried to meet the requirements of the PUD and get everything in here and recognize the presence of the 120-foot utility easement and the 100-year floodplain, we finally had to whittle this thing down to 44 units, or 49 units, I'm sorry. These will be 2-story. They have covered parking for 2 vehicles. They'll have space for 2 vehicles in each driveway. They'll be separated as we step down across the property according to grade. And we've agreed with the fire chief that we'll have a 10-foot separation when we do have to split the buildings. We contemplate connecting to the driveway that comes in off of Centerton Boulevard. Staff and the fire department have visited with us, and they have had issues with the width of that driveway off of Centerton Boulevard for years. It really doesn't give them enough maneuvering room for fire apparatus to get in and out of there safely without them encroaching out across several lanes. So we've committed that come down and widen that driveway and give them the necessary radius and width to be able to get fire apparatus back onto the site. And of course, it's going to make it easier for refuse and garbage pickup to come in there as well. The Stoneley Apartments is somewhat unique that they have a master meter for their water. There's one master meter they've connected to the city system. We propose to tie to that system, and these will be metered off of that one master meter for the whole complex. We will build a gravity sanitary sewer system, and it'll connect to an existing sanitary sewer system that is along the east side of the property between our concept layout and the apartment complex. We'll serve it with private streets. There'll be a cul-de-sac at the end of one of these down to the north side, and have sufficient radius to maneuver 210-inch fire apparatus in there as well. We've committed, of course, to a lighting plan that would meet Centerton City Code. We'll landscape it according to code. We're going to preserve the floodway, the floodplain, and I think that's kind of a nickel tour of the whole site. We'll have 2. The fire chief asked for 2 entrances, so we're connecting to the southwest corner of the existing complex as well as to the middle part of the complex. Much of the easement for the power lines is going to be devoted to green space. The owner of that SWEPCO came through a few years ago when they had a blanket easement. They restricted it to 120 feet, and in the process of doing so, they have some fairly restrictive requirements as far as the utilization of the ground space. We can't have any trees in there, no hard improvements taller than 1 foot. They will allow us to erect fences in there, and each one of these units will have a 15 by 15 backyard patio area that will serve each residence. We've met the requisite space green space requirement of 25%, and I think that pretty much covers the high points.
Let's see, Donna, is this you as well?
Yes, sir.
would you like to give us a staff overview, please?
All right, so we have received a concept plan. We will need to do a full large-scale development prior to construction approval. So with the PUD, PUDs, approvals are required. Approvals for PUDs shall be based on the findings that the PUD land use is permitted in the presented zoning district and or is compatible with the city's land use plan and or is substantially similar to adjacent property. And we have just rezoned the property. The development is likely to be compatible with development and or land use permitted as right. Provides public benefits that would not be achievable through the normal zoning regulations. Adequate public utilities are already in place. A development will not impose substantial negative external impacts and does not endanger public health, welfare, or safety. So the specific criteria per the PUD code, one is area. The parcel, two parcels together is about 8.64 acres. Uses is 44 residential townhomes. It is a multifamily development as phase 2 of Stone Lane, as previously discussed. It will be owned, is currently owned by Capnuco 1 LLC, and future ownership will be vested in the corporate entities that control the apartment complex. So this meets that code. It meets some, but not all of the requirements of the RTH zoning code. Some of those have been varied as noted in your PC packets. Such as mostly regarding the total lot width and this going to be one lot. The proposed PUD is the calculated density is slightly less than 6 units per acre, which is consistent with the proposed rezone to RTH-MF, which has a density of 3 to 12 units per acre. There are no accessory buildings planned at this time. RTH-MF limits to 1 per unit and states that there shall be no accessory structures within 20 foot of a rear building setback. There is a dumpster that is, there's not a dimension, but it is somewhat close to a side setback line. And there is also a cul-de-sac, which is right on a property line, which we may need to look at the large scale development stage or at the conditional use here. If we could go to the next page, please. We received this open space diagram. The minimum open space requirement is 25%, which according to this diagram, this meets exactly. According to the PUD code, it excludes all buildings, accessory structures, yards, streets, or drainage ways and detentions. The proposed PUD excludes buildings, streets, the rear 15 by 15 patio area, the front yards, and the floodplain below the 100-year flood level. It includes as the common open space side yards, the portions of the rear yards that are not the patio area, the 120-foot utility easement, and the property above the 100-year flood level. There are no slopes greater than 15%. And the floodways is excluded. There are no retention ponds or bodies of water included in the open space as well. And the common open space will be dedicated via a permanent easement. Next page, please. The proposed units are 2-story, 3-bedroom townhouses, and the plans incorporate siding and brick that meet the requirements of the PUD ordinance, but not the RTH MF12 zoning code. Though I believe that the updated response to comments said that the intent was to meet them. So we may be getting updated architectural plans. Sorry to jump around, Nicole, but could we go back to the concept plan? The existing site has extensive existing tree cover, and what's within the floodplain will be preserved as there is no work planned within that area. What's outside of that is not likely to be preserved due to site work, and then the fact that the electric company has said that no trees are to remain within their easement, and that is the large majority of the open space that exists that is not either yards or buildings. We will require a landscape plan during the large-scale development review. The conceptual plan does not include a lighting plan in detail, so we will need that during the large-scale development process as well. Each townhouse unit is proposed with a 2-car garage and a double-width driveway. The side of the parking streets common to fire hydrants will be striped and signed. No off-street or visitor parking is proposed in the concept plan. For PC consideration, staff has recommended off-street visitor parking at a rate of 1 stall per unit, or per 5 units, excuse me, 1 stall per 5 units. I'm sure Doug will comment on that when he has a moment. No signage is proposed for this development. Regarding suitability, I have listed several items from the comprehensive plan that this meets, and several that this does not, specifically from the new downtown center. So those are listed in your packets, and I will not go through them individually to save us all a substantial amount of time. For staff findings, we've gone through quite a bit of this already. But specifically, we will need a flood permit with the large scale development application, and we will also need a wetlands assessment. So Nicole, there's a page with the conditional uses. If we could go either go to that, or if we could stay on the concept plan, depending on what planning commission would like to do. Jeff?
I'm good. Let's stay here for just a second. And before we move on to the commissioners, I would like to open it up for the public, since it is a public hearing. And so again, there's two ways that you can join, be recognized. One is the opportunity to raise your hand if you're joined virtually, or *9 if you're on the telephone, and then we can recognize you to speak. And again, we do ask that you give your name and your address. So with that, does anyone from the public wish to speak in regards to the PUD 20-03?
Not seeing anybody.
We'll do a second call for anyone that wishes to speak.
Still none.
And we'll do a third and final call for anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the PUD 20-03.
Still none.
With that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
It's John. I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right. Any?
Jeff, there is one item that I would like to mention before you all go start discussing. Staff did request sidewalks, connections, interior, and at least to the common space within the in this green area here. And so that is something that we would like to see. So that is something that I wanted to bring up before you started discussing, that we wanted to have interior sidewalks throughout the development and at a minimum in the common area.
Okay.
Apologies for interrupting.
You're good. So the math on the off-street parking, how many parking spaces is that? I didn't catch the number exactly. Do you guys have that number?
It looks to be 40. Is it 45? No, wait, 49 units. Is that
49 units.
Yeah.
There are 44 on this one.
So Doug stated, and I think Doug's still with us, but Doug stated 49.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It's 49.
Apologies, he's correct.
Okay, so on 49, would that be 10? Would that be 10 spots?
Yeah, it'd be 10, Jeff.
Okay. I'll just double
And I
check.
think, do we want to specify exactly how many, or just leave it open as 1 per 5 in case something changes?
Well, I think I was just trying to do the math.
Oh, okay.
Not to be specific that we want 10. I agree it needs to be 1 to 5 because it could, of course, go up or down. Doug, discussion or thoughts on, and I know you were kind of appointed to help us out tonight, go through this. So any thoughts on the street parking being available somewhere?
Well, I guess I have several of these items I want to comment on. Do you want to just to address them, to maybe respond to you as we come to them, or?
Yes. So
Okay.
the first one,
Okay, regarding number 11, the parking, the off-street parking and the code for a dwelling unit, the single-family units, 2 covered plus 2 uncovered. And it says otherwise it's 2 per dwelling unit. So I think that we have easily met we exceed the requirements that's in the code by having 2 covered and 2 in the driveway. If we have to develop another 10 spaces in there, we're going to lose a building. and maybe 2 buildings, because we just don't have that much room. And so I guess we had talked about this, and it was this is a surprise to me, because my understanding from the conversations that Nicole and I had with the fire chief was that in deference to his request in regards to off-street parking or on-street parking, we were going to sign and stripe the side of the street that's common to the fire hydrants. And then we were going to allow parking in the street. This whole requirement of another 5 was never discussed. It's new, and both myself and the developer think it's excessive, because we have more than met what's required in the code. So I would submit that it's.
Was it discussed or not discussed, Doug?
Sir?
Was it discussed or not discussed? As it sounds like it was discussed.
These extra 1 per 5 units was never discussed.
No offsite.
What was discussed was signing and striping the streets so that we could park on the streets.
Okay.
Let me just weigh in here. It was my understanding that it was an either or, because originally they had, I think, narrower drives, or the hydrants were placed where there couldn't be street parking. And I believe Doug has accommodated street parking on one side. And I believe the street parking can accommodate that 1 per 5 off-site parking requirement. If I'm
and
not
that was, and Nicole's correct. That was how we left this. I don't know where the 1 and 5 came from, but we deferred to the fire chief and agreed to the signing and striping. And so I think we have more than adequate parking. We've exceeded the requests, the recommended parking in the code, as well as providing it on the street. And I think this 1 and 5 is kind of excessive. So I would ask that you would consider striking that, please.
So I think that's for your all's consideration as part of your conditions. But I think the intent for that condition is to allow for street parking to fulfill that requirement. Does that make sense? And if it needs to be reworded, we can do so.
How wide is that street? I know it's a concept plan, but.
They're 24 feet wide, sir.
Okay.
And I don't know if other staff wants to weigh in on how they feel about the street parking for this type of a development, if they feel that it'll function well for visitors.
So what I see on this is private drive A, no issues. When you get to private drive B or the cul-de-sac road, there's not any room to park on the street. I mean, there might be a couple. Well, it might be okay. Do we have anybody from the fire department on here? Doesn't look like it.
I did not see Paul on earlier.
Gotcha. You know, looking at it, it looks like they could park between some of the drive cuts for the driveways. And you know, I don't see it being a huge deal. I just wanted to make sure that a 24-foot road with a car parked in it's adequate for the fire department, because I was under the assumption they needed 20 feet.
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point, I don't think we're here to figure it out. We'll do that in a large scale, but I'm okay conceptually with the idea of them parking in the street and signing it correctly. And, you know, they'll have to get the sign off from the fire department.
Because they'd really only give them about 10 feet, right? I mean, or 14 feet, I guess, in all reality, to get through there. But Nicole or Don and Nicole, can you guys make that a note to let's get discussion and clarification from the fire department?
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you. All right, Doug, what about mobility throughout the area.
I assume you're talking about sidewalks.
Yes.
Okay. We've been at odds on this one from the get-go. The original request was to connect to the sidewalks in Stoneley, but there are no sidewalks in Stoneley. And so I'm very much, and I think most engineers really aren't happy and excited about dumping sidewalks off out in the middle of nowhere, much less into a driveway or a parking lot or something like that. So that's another function of us being land bound. We can't get back to Centerton Boulevard. There's nothing to connect to. It's Stoneley. And we really just don't have the rooms in order to get the lot yield on this to make it work, to put them beside the driveways. So as a concession in trying to develop the connectivity between Stoneley, this development, and then eventually what's going to be hopefully the town center to the west, we're showing the one sidewalk coming across through that common area. And I've kind of left it dead-ended there because, you know, I just don't know what to do with it there when we come into that radius coming back into the cul-de-sac. We can swing that over and stub it out into that property back to the west, but I think that's about the best that we really can feel like we can offer. The topography of this is such, the backyards on those easternmost units, they're going to be 6 to 7 feet above the apartment complex driveway back over there. So we really can't make a connection back over there very well because of the grade issues. The units to the north, we can't make a connection to Centerton. So we would, you know, I understand that. I'm a big believer in sidewalks, but this one really just doesn't beg. And what we're wanting to try to do is try to minimize taking up the green space in here. Quite frankly, if we have to come in here and put more sidewalks in here, we're going to lose units because we based this whole thing on the 25%. So we've worked with this thing to get it optimized to get that exact 25%, and it was tough, let me tell you. So I would submit that the sidewalk through the common area down there, which I believe that staff said they thought was a minimum, we're amenable to that. And I think that winds up eventually will make some sort of connectivity from east to west to the downtown area.
To clarify, sidewalks do not count against green space. They do count as part of the open space requirements.
Stand corrected, excuse
me. So my thought on this is we're shoving almost 50 units onto about 6 acres. You know, I think the density is there to kind of warrant some of that. And I don't know, I mean, it looks front yard wise. I don't know why you couldn't get sidewalks in there.
For folks to gather in that green space that's under the
Right.
power lines, or did you just do that to get to the 25%? There's no gathering at all in this, if I'm reading it correctly, except for that little bit of green space. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of your question, Mr. Chairman.
So is the intent for there to be any gathering space at all on this property?
We're going to try our best to do something with that utility easement. The restrictions obviously being we can't have any hard improvements taller than 1 foot. So we're envisioning having a dog park down there. We're going to have anything we can get in that SWEPCO will allow us to get in there. And so, yes, it is intended to be a gathering space. But right now, we just don't know. SWEPCO has given us the document saying that we can't do these things. And then they turned right around and said, well, yeah, if you want to have some fences in here, yeah, you're welcome to do that. But then their document says we can't have anything taller than 1 foot. So that's a questionable what all we're going to be able to develop down there as far as a community amenity. But it's intended to be a gathering area. Yes, sir, you're correct. And in the way it's split up there, I expect we'll probably have 3 areas. We'll have one back Midwest, one Central West, and then the one to the far east. And then we'll probably try to do something with that area back over to the north of the cul-de-sac as well. It's out of the floodplain, so we've got some green area in there. I think we still have the question about how the cul-de-sac will impact in there, but I guess I'd just ask you to recognize that this is a concept plan until we get the survey, the topography, and get in here and really start trying to fit this together. We need to have a little latitude, and that's what we've been asking for. So
yeah,
we want to make this a nice place to live.
And I think I don't want to speak just for, myself. I think some of the other commissioners and some of our other things as well have certainly pushed for connectivity. And with this being close to what we're considering for the new downtown area, which of course we would want people to be able to move, back and forth, I would say I'm going to call it connectivity, whether it's a sidewalk, some sort of path or something like that, should be considered as you guys come back and bring your large scale development plan to us. If we're already crowding the streets in regards to people being able to park on one side, so we're already taking up anywhere from 6 to 8 feet and people walking in amongst this community, and you're going to make it tough on them. So, the opportunity for them to be able to move throughout in a safe manner is what we'd be looking for. And whether that's a sidewalk, some sort of other path, I'll let y'all be creative, but I would say that, there needs to be some connectivity with the ability to move throughout. Okay.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Jeff, something else to consider is that fire has stated there will need to be a stub out to the south. They would prefer that it be at the existing Stoneley Drive. And if it can't be done there because the apartment owners are not currently a party to this application, it would need to be figured out somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that one too?
Yes, sir.
We've talked about this, and this really presents a dilemma here because, as was pointed out, the apartment complex is not a party to this, so I can't make a commitment based on this to them. They will eventually have this. I've had a discussion with them and explained this to them. Philosophically, they understand it, but they do have a real reservation to a stub out. They're not sure where we're going to stub out to. And secondly, they don't want to encourage any traffic coming through from something to the south, short circuiting through this development and then trying to cut across over to Centerton Boulevard, because these are not public streets. They're private driveways. So I understand the thought process behind asking for this, but they are just adamantly opposed to making this a shortcut from a future public street to the south back over to Centerton, because these streets and driveways and parking lots are just not designed for public traffic.
Donna, do you know why they asked?
Just
sorry,
to
Jeff,
clarify.
Or Nicole, sorry.
Yeah, we're kind of all jumping in there. Okay.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
No, you.
Somebody.
Okay. Well, what we asked for was off of the main drive of Stoneley to extend to the south. And it is not. And we get this all the time that, it's going to open up. Everyone's going to drive through, this development. I've actually, talked to people in this development and they would love to have another access besides trying to get on 102. The intent is for this to go to a collector so that people have other ways, and also for emergency access should 102, not be available.
The development to the east that's being constructed right now, does it have one out the south? And you may not know that off the top.
Yes. Are you talking the commercial development to the
Yes.
east?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
They're actually constructing the extension of Allen Road, and there's a planned extension from Allen Road all the way south to Kimmel. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Well, all I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, is what I've shared with you, that they are not a party, and so I can't make a commitment to it. I kind of see it, but then, they haven't absolutely said no. They're concerned about the cost of it, and they really just don't want to encourage the through traffic. And this was a phone conversation with the site manager and with their officers with the holding company up there. And so it puts me in a difficult position. I kind of understand it, but right now they don't have through traffic, and I don't think they want to encourage through traffic. And one of the commissioners made the comment the other day that we really didn't want to try to encourage through traffic into this new downtown area. And so is that what we're going to be doing by default if we open this thing up and you have another collector here to the south? Is that going to be feeding more traffic in there? I don't know. It would seem to me that
I don't think any of the commissioners gave you any feedback because this is the first that we've had discussions on it. So I'm not sure that any of the planning commissioners actually gave you any feedback in regards to the stub out. So I'm a little.
I may have misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Jeff, this is John. I think he may be talking about my comment in the previous topic with in terms of rezoning, connecting that downtown area. And it wasn't meant to be through traffic. It was meant to be just connection to that downtown area.
Okay, I understand now. I misunderstood. Thank you.
Comment you're talking about. Sorry.
So Doug, here, and the reason I asked about the property to the east, because understand that every time, tonight we didn't, 99% of the time, when we see developments, people make comments about traffic. And so our goal of the connectivity part of it would include, when we look at them, multiple ways to get people through. Understand there may be smaller streets. We may not have designed it necessarily as a collector, but there's a lot of people that live in Stoneleigh. There's a lot of people that are going to live in these units. And so they're going to have one way in and out based on what you're presenting here. If that one way is backed up, in the future, they may not have a way to get out. So you're actually introducing more of a potential issue here for them to get in and out. So when we evaluate them and look at these, we look at, are there opportunities? And if the land to the south was to develop along with the land to the east, to the west, which is the new downtown, we're not necessarily saying, hey, it's going to be this large collector road that's going to handle all the traffic. It simply offers an alternative. If they were to see that 102 is backed up for whatever reason, then it would offer them a way out. So the preference would be for us to try to put a stub out to the south somewhere on here. And so if that's a conversation with the current Stoneleigh folks, great. If it's a discussion with you guys, great. But understand that our intent would be to have multiple ways in and out of these because of the large density of the folks that live there.
And I certainly understand that. I'm not trying to be contrarian. It's just we're kind of an odd situation here. If this were a subdivision, man, I'm all for connectivity. The more the better. This being a private development with private driveways, private parking lots, maintenance of it, I think they're just really concerned about wear and tear on their private assets. So that's all I have to say on it. So I do understand your concerns, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And the thing is, we don't know what the future connectivity looks like, but there are other private developments in the city that have to provide a second way for the fire department to get in. So it's not inconsistent with what we've done in the past.
Would this be something that we could perhaps provide and put a gate on it with a Knox box or something for the fire department?
I would certainly discuss that with staff, and they may want to answer tonight, but certainly as part of the development plan.
Because I mean, I think that provides the connectivity, the fire safety, and it protects the assets of the parties involved.
I would say that we can leave it as a connectivity comment with the PUD and handle it during the large scale. You know, if something might change here, that connection might not be applicable on the new plan. So I say we just leave it as that. Yeah. Do you agree?
I'm good with that.
Hey, before we move on, I have a question, more of just an overall type question. Donna, one of the PUD items was that it provides public benefit versus just the straight zoning. I see a lot of stuff that we're meeting or we don't meet. I'm trying to just get an overall idea of what kind of public benefits there are on this PUD, and just to try to wrap my head around that. Does that make sense? Kind of what we're getting comparatively speaking when we look at this PUD or compared to the zoning code.
Are you referencing the considerations for the PUD, or where are you looking at specifically?
I'm asking you what benefits there are in doing this as a PUD over the straight zoning, and you mentioned as part of the PUD that that's an option that provides additional public benefits. Did I mishear that?
No, I was just trying to clarify where exactly that was. I was just trying to get a handle on what the question was.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to identify things that we've done better on this PUD versus a straight zoning. Because to me, it looks pretty straightforward. It does seem to be pretty dense, and we have green space, but that green space is going to be there anyway because they can't build anything in it. So I'm just trying to figure that out.
Mr. Engel, if I might.
Sure, Doug.
I think I pointed that out in my opening comments, is that one of the considerations of the PUD is that in order to get the flexibility to deviate from the underlying zoning districts, we give up 25% of our development space. And as we approach this, we wanted to make something that looked nice, that fit in with the apartment complex, that was an enhancement to the downtown district. And so we're doing something that's giving the 25%. Granted, it's dense, but it's not as dense as we could do. And our other option in there was to come in and build more apartment buildings, and and request for that. So we're trying to do something that's an enhancement. We've given up the 25% green space, and granted, the front part of this property is tough to work with. We could do some things. We could do some lomers. We could do some adjustments. We could do some fills, and we could capture some of that. But the intent is to try to leave that as a wetlands area, and it's going to be an enhancement to the community. It's going to be a continuation of the wetlands that are associated with McKissick Creek Lake. So I guess I didn't want to cut off the staff, but I mean, in our mind, that was one of the things that doing this, I wouldn't say it's an environmental positive, but it certainly is a consideration, is that the city is going to gain a lot of space that's never going to be developed. And I think that's, like I said, that's the offset of having the flexibility under the PUD.
Okay, I got you. One, I don't know that it'd be developed anyway. If you're just looking at this 8 acres, filling all that floodplain, going through that process wouldn't be feasible to make that work. And then I guess the only other item I had was, you mentioned the 25% green space. If you go straight zoning, we don't have requirements on that green space, but we certainly have building setback area. So, I mean, we're not gaining 25% green space by going to a PUD. You're not going to cover that whole parcel in buildings if we went normal zoning either. So I was just trying to get a handle on, typically with the PUD, we see some features, that would be more aesthetic, like your gathering area. I understand you're kind of hamstrung by the easement, but I don't really see that in this submittal. So, while we're going through each one of these items, and with the PUD, it's kind of a give and take. So while we're going through each one of these items, I was just trying to wrap my head around the overall kind of where we're sit right now with this PUD.
Certainly. Well, like I said, we are hamstrung there under the utility easement, and we've had conversations about the wetlands area back over there, what we can do with that. We certainly don't want to come in there and pillage and plunder that. But there's no reason why we couldn't look at trying to do some pathways, some nature pathways down in there. We have a lot, we have a lot of options for amenities here, and it's too early in the process for us to lay those out, Mr. Engel.
Right, I understand, but we're here you're asking for an approval on the PUD. So, we only have what you give us.
All right, Donna, are there any other things on your list beside the off-street and the sidewalk / connectivity that we need to think about?
Really, the biggest thing that I would say is that the open space is just very tight on this. If you look at this diagram, the patios are excluded from the rear yards, but there are portions of rear yards that are not. So just consider if the open space states that it be common usable open space. So the question is 25%, and is it really common usable open space? So it's just to really discuss that would be my final thought.
Donna, are there any errors in the calculation? I know you kind of went when you did your initial explanation, you kind of said what was included, what wasn't included. But how they have it calculated, does it match how it's supposed to be calculated per the code?
From what I've been able to tell, yes. We don't have a CAD file or anything like that, so I haven't been able to run any specific calculations, but from just a general look, yes.
Okay, yep, thank you.
I had Jethro cipher those numbers, Mr. Engel.
I'm sorry, Doug, what did you say?
I had Jethro cipher those numbers for me, so I
Gotcha.
checked those very carefully. We worked those hard.
Yeah, Donna's going to be drawing triangles and squares and busting out the scale here in a little bit.
All right. Doug, you'd mentioned there may be some other things that you wanted to have a discussion on, or did we?
I had I guess two. One was number 10 under accessory structures and uses. No accessory structures shall be allowed. We've agreed to that, and it says accessory uses such as dumpsters shall not be permitted within X feet of a side property line ? I guess that's a really ambiguous statement there. I don't know what to make of it. If I could have, I guess, staff, this was a new one. It did not show up until this week. So if someone could educate me on what the intent was on that comment.
Is it the one to the south, Donna? I'm assuming.
That was a draft one after we had received a new, the submittal number 3. And it has been clarified since then.
Okay, very good. I just didn't understand it. So that takes care of that. And then my last comment was in regard to number 13, the easement overhang. No trees planted in the existing utility easement, and any existing trees shall be removed. Understand that. Then in addition, buildings shall be a setback a minimum of 2 feet from the easement in order to prevent overhang. This is kind of a generous reading of building setback. I thought a building setback was a building setback was a building setback. And this is a new variant on something I thought was well established.
Yeah, and I don't know why specific, Donna, do you know why that comment is there? Or Lorraine or Nicole, sorry.
If I'm understanding it, I think it actually comes from the building code, which allows for a 2-foot overhang of the structure into the setback. Maureen, can you clarify
That's correct.
that?
That's correct. And so that's why when we have these overhead power lines, then we have to make sure that the overhang of a building does not encroach. When he goes and does the footings, he has them string that setback line because our code allows for a 2-foot overhang. But when it comes to the power lines, he would like that building setback to be 2 foot off of there so that they do not encroach into that with the roof overhang.
But we're
And
bearing
that was the building official's comment.
but that's not what's in the code. And I guess the other question is, we're not having overhead utilities. Everything's going to be buried. So I guess it's just a generous interpretation of what the code, beyond what the code requires. And we're just not familiar with the basis for that.
The code does state a 2-foot overhang is allowed.
Well, but you're saying we can't have it. You're saying to prevent overhang. You're saying, as I read this,
you're talking about the easement, Doug, not the setback, but just the overhead power easement. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have there'll be common setbacks and utility easements. So, okay. But it's just not something we've ever seen in code before. So we're trying to figure out where it came from.
Okay, well, we can find the code for you, and we can also, if you want to speak to the building official, or
no, that's fine. I couldn't find it, so that was the question. I've never seen this requirement before, so that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm a little confused on this, Lorraine. You said that it's to allow, typically there's the 7-foot side setback. Your overhang can go in that. You stated that it does allow a 2-foot overhang, but this comment reads, to Doug's point, buildings shall be set back a minimum of 2 feet from the easement in order to prevent overhang.
Prevent the overhang of the building to encroach into that easement.
Yeah, okay. And you're just talking about the easement, right?
Correct.
Now,
the overhead power lines.
Yes, that specific easement, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So if we have no overhead power lines, we don't have to adhere to this then?
Correct.
Okay.
It can be a common utility easement building setback, except where that overhead power line is, you need to have that building setback 2 feet off of that.
Oh, you're talking about the high tension power line?
Yes, and isn't there you have that other one. Is that going to be reduced?
I mean, there's no way that these buildings are going to be affected by that overhead power line. And the smaller one, the service area, all of our buildings are well away from that easement. I see what you.
Doesn't it look like the northern structure is right on the line?
But that's adjacent to the 165 kV line, the transmission line. I mean,
yeah, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is, there's an easement through there for that line. Is that correct?
But under the terms of the easement, we're allowed to get back up against that. This is
no. The setback needs to be 2 feet from that line so that the overhang does not encroach into the overhead power line easement. We have one home in Willow Crossing that had to get an exception from Willow Crossing. And then there were another one that had to be completely removed from the site. So
But as Lorraine mentioned, she'll get further clarification if it's
Okay.
necessary from the building
Okay.
inspector.
I understand where she's talking about now. I was thinking in terms of utilities serving these individual buildings. I wasn't thinking in terms of the large easement crossing there with the high tension lines.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I have one. You know, considering what we approved the rezone with the downtown and with this property being in the downtown area, you know, we have the proposal of the whole downtown area to the west of this. I'm not seeing much screening on the west side of this property, and I think that's something we're going to want.
Yeah, I definitely think there's an opportunity for some trees and some other things back there on the west side for sure.
The landscaping that's on there, Mr. Commissioner, is just schematic. We intend to address all these when we go to the large scale development. This was just to show that we recognize we have to have landscaping and generally show some areas where we're going to concentrate.
Okay. And then one other item, Lorene, Nicole, anybody on planning, do we typically allow the dumpster enclosures in the setback?
I think that was the reason that accessory structure comment was left for your determination.
Yeah.
And Lorraine, you might want to chime in on this as well. I think the dumpster enclosure would be considered an accessory structure. And 7 feet is typically, I guess in residential districts, that's kind of a standard separation for accessory structures. I don't know if that's appropriate to consider here, or if there's another way to look at those types of structures.
I have an idea here. I mean, don't we have the perimeter landscape buffer that we've been talking about?
You're saying just buffer the enclosure with screening, landscape screening?
Yeah, I know in that revision that we were looking at, we had some perimeter landscape buffers, and I forget if it was 7 feet, 10 feet. I think we went back and forth on it. Yeah, obviously we're going to want them screened, but I think instead of setting it at a typical 7-foot residential side setback, just because that's what we normally do, maybe we take into consideration that landscape buffer and use that as our basis instead of just a typical residential side setback.
I think the difference between the 7 foot and the 10 foot had to do with the location, whether it was on the side or in the frontage or.
Yeah.
And I really hate to make the garbage truck go through the neighborhood, but at the end of that cul-de-sac to the north almost makes more sense. And then it would allow for potential more gathering over there that would be close to the new downtown area. It just almost makes more sense, but I hate to make a trash truck drive through the street.
Mr. Chairman, I actually had it over there, and I was asked to move it because the thought was we didn't want people, as they drive into this complex, the first thing they would see would be a dumpster. So we put it kind of back on this west side. I had it on the end of the cul-de-sac to start with. So there's nothing magic about that other than the request was to put it in a less visible. We just didn't want people driving down the street and seeing that, driving down Centerton and seeing a dumpster.
Yeah, you could just make it look a little nicer on the backside and match.
Oh, certainly we'll be happy to fence it and do the proper architectural treatment and landscaping around it to hide it.
Make sure that it's sturdy. I don't want to go through all that when we get to the large scale development.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments or questions from any of the other commissioners?
So just to clarify, in particular Joey's comments, you would like us to add a condition just specifying that screening, preferably vegetative screening, be applied along the western property line.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
please.
and then that the dumpsters and any accessory structure maintain the landscape buffer. And I want to say it was either 8 feet or 15 feet in the draft code. So
I mean, to be fair, I think I'd be okay with 10 feet. I was just asking mainly if we put them in, if we allow them in the setback, like if we're looking at commercial development, typically where I've worked, we have to keep them out of the setback.
oh, I see. Lorraine, do you want to speak to that?
I don't know if we have to keep them out of the setback. I think most of the developments, like along 102, they do that because there's a 10-foot side setback. And as far as the landscape buffer, I thought that it was 10 feet. So that is something that needs to be looked at
I mean,
on
I
what's
think
required, the screening buffer.
I'd be happy just to call it 10 feet, Lorraine, if
Yeah,
everybody's okay with that.
As long as it's buffered, I think that's the main thing that we're looking for. Yes.
Hey, Joey, I was kind of going back and looking at some of our old notes. I'm pretty sure it says 10 feet in that buffer that we talked about a couple months ago.
Cool. Thank you, John.
All right. Any other comments or questions or anything that we need to cover?
I'd like to tell if Doug's still on the phone. Yeah, he's on there. Doug, I would say, I don't know how this is set up, if you guys are going to be doing the large scale, but consider, our future plans to the west and, maybe making some features on this for your gathering area and just taking all that into consideration when you do the large scale. And I think it'll go a long ways on that review of that large scale and help you out.
Well, I've got a proposal to the block companies to do the large scale, and we'll shift from Cap Nuco to them if you guys approve this, and certainly understand, and we'll coordinate with you guys, and we want this to be something that everyone can be proud of and it enhances downtown. So I get it. We'll certainly do our best, and we'll have some ideas, but this is kind of a circular process. We need to kind of see what you're thinking and get something to start with before we can do large scale. So I think we've had a very productive conversation this evening and appreciate y'all's consideration.
Nicole, Lorraine, Don, anything else from staff?
Did PC make a decision regarding the connectivity to the south?
So I think that we left it as though we would expect connectivity, but I think the definition would be left open. And so I think that's kind of the way we left it. And I think that may have been some language that either Joey or John used, especially without having any clarification from a fire perspective. But there should be some sort of opportunity for connectivity is the way that we wanted to leave it.
This is Jerry.
Hey, Jerry, go ahead.
You're talking about a southern exit or whatever. You could consider a street along the east side of the new downtown all the way out to Kimball. In a meeting that I was in with the Copeland family, with discussion with Nicole and Lorraine and the mayor, I suggested that would solve your southern connectivity to that piece of property.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Does that help, Donna?
We'll make a note and look into that.
Okay. All right, anything else from staff? If not, then I would entertain a motion for the PUD 2003 Stone Lake Phase 2. Again, it's proposed RTH MF12, just over 88.64 acres, and as presented this evening was 49 units, including the comments this evening from both commissioner, staff, and of course, some of the commentary that Doug provided as well for clarification.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve PUD 2003 with all the items that Jeff just mentioned and everything that we discussed this afternoon.
John, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Todd, it's a public, so if you'll do a roll call for me.
Jerry Harris,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifert.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is a difficult piece of property, and we really appreciate you giving us your consideration and working with us so we can get this project off the ground. Thank you.
All right, good luck. We look forward to seeing it. Next on the agenda this evening is subdivision 2020. I thought we were done with 2020. Kimmel Ridge Phase 2. It is on Kimmel Road, west of Greenhouse. It is R3 duplex, 9.82 acres, 22 duplex lots, one single family lot, and 4 non-buildable lots. And Diane, this looks like it is you.
Yes, and Jeff, that was the most perfect comment and didn't really realize that. It was 2020 until you said that. This is an extension, a phase 2 of the Kimmel Ridge duplexes, which are here on Kimmel Ridge Road. They are wanting to do a total of 22 duplex lots and 1 single family lot and 4 unbuildable lots, because as you can see, it is within a floodplain and a floodway. And it is located on the north side of Kimmel Road, west of Greenhouse. And it is zoned R3 duplex, high density duplex residential. I do believe that John Wary is on the call. He is the engineer for this project. If you would like to have him do input, or just let me continue on.
Go ahead, and then I'll let John.
Okay.
I want to go out order here. We'll let John jump in here after you wrap up, if you're okay with that.
No problem. I just wanted to put that out there. There is an adjacent street agreement for a fee in lieu for improvements to Kimmel Road. And let's see, the right-of-way on Kimmel Road, it is designated as a major collector on the master street plan with a minimum right-of-way of 80 feet. 30 feet was previously dedicated with phase 1, and an additional 10 feet of right-of-way is being dedicated with this plat for Kimmel Road. Because this phase 2 does not connect to the north, which is watercolors. It does connect to Kimmel Ridge phase 1, and it does not directly connect to Kimmel Road. They do have 2 emergency access turnarounds built in within this phase. The street improvements, the fee in lieu, it has been supported by staff, but the city engineer still has yet to weigh in on it. They paid 50% of the cost with the first phase. They're going to pay 50% with the second phase, 25% to be done with the before they do their pre-con, and then the other 50% at final plat. They do have utility services that they will connect to from the Kimmel Ridge Phase 1, and also there on Kimmel Road. There are a couple of existing easements. One easement will be vacated with this at the end of the road that will extend into Kimmel Ridge Phase 2. There is a, oh, thank you, Nicole, a easement right there that will be vacated to extend the road, and then it will still all drain to the floodplain and flood area. And this property is located partially within the floodplain. It is floodplain AE, floodway AE, and X, which is other floodplain. They are not doing any development within the floodplain, with the exception of some riprap at the end of this southern street. But we do request that they do a floodplain permit, which they have applied for. And we are working with CEI to get the rest of the information on that and get that finalized. And a wetlands assessment has been requested for this property that needs to be completed prior to construction. They do have a good amount of open space. They are going to dedicate in this very southern lot, 95, they are wanting to dedicate some of this to the city of Centerton as a conservation area. They do have a dog park and also a POA park. There is no detention for this development, and all the storm water flows through phase 1 and 2 into this existing floodplain. And that is the basic overall information. And if you all need anything else, let me know. And like I said, John is the representative for Morrison Shipley, and Josh Henthorn is the city engineer on this project.
John, did you have anything to add?
This is John Wary. I don't think I had anything to add. I think Diane covered it pretty well. Diane, you made a comment that the street agreement hasn't been reviewed yet. Is that what you said?
It has been accepted by Rick, but I have not received a acceptance from the city engineer, which is CEI on this one.
Okay.
Josh did send an email on that, and he said that if Rick was okay with it, then he did not have any objections.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for Laureen. Thank you, Laureen.
I don't think I have anything to add, but I'll be happy to try to answer any questions anybody has.
Did you pick the street names? No, I'm just kidding. Is that going to fit on a sign?
What's that?
Purple Finch. Is that going to fit on a sign?
It's already there.
I'm just
definitely
kidding.
cost me more.
That's an
They are
existing
kind of long
street,
names,
isn't it, Joey?
but
Sorry.
Yeah, it's already there.
It's way too late.
You
I
can blame
should've
me
looked
for
at
that,
it.
Jeff.
the little Iona one, I think, is the one that's going to be a little bit long.
All right. Sorry about that. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners?
I see something that's a little odd that I just wanted to touch on. The double frontage for that road that stubs to the south of Little Lona Avenue. Is that okay in our code, Diane?
What was that? The double frontage?
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at this wrong. Nope, they're good. I thought that road butted up against the existing lots, but there's two rows of lots. Disregard that.
Okay, I was like, thanks, Joe.
It's been a long night, Joey.
Yes, it has, and it's
Yeah,
freezing
this-
cold. So I think all
this
our
one
brains are
wasn't even-
frozen.
It wasn't even that bad either. So yeah, I'm just misreading.
All right.
There are like
Any
9
other-
public hearings in the next meeting, so.
Any other questions or comments? If not, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2020 Kimmel Ridge Phase 2.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 2020 Kimmel Ridge Phase 2 without all the outstanding staff comments.
Oh, and we did receive a couple of new sheets from Morrison Shipley that I have not had a chance to review. So I'm assuming, John, I'm assuming that you got them all fixed, that all staff comments have been addressed, with the exception of the floodplain permit.
Yep,
John,
yes,
did you
Diane,
send
they
those
should be
today?
addressed. I'm sorry, Jeff?
You send those today.
No, I think I sent those, was that last week, Diane?
I want to say it was like Thursday or Friday, but of course the weather's been a little flaky, and then we had a holiday Monday, and yeah, I know excuses, but I mean, he did respond to comments, so.
All right, good deal. I do think we have a motion. I didn't hear a second yet, though.
It's John. I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Diane.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
In other business, the next planning commission meeting is 3/2. If you can't be here, please let us know. There is a tech review meeting on 2/25, and there is a council meeting on 3/9. Anything else from any of the commissioners? Anything else from staff? All right. If not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Devin, second.
Just a moment.
No.
No, I heard a second. Nope, too late.
Yes, Donna.
We got a message.
All right. This is Lorraine. I'm asking, was a public hearing set for the master street plan already? Or do we need to set one?
I don't think we're quite to that place yet. I think we still, oh, well, I guess, are you wanting to?
I thought that you had that map that made those few changes so that we match up with Bentonville, and that you were wanting to set up. Oh, sorry.
Get them.
I know, and she's real tiny.
I said, get him, Greta, get him.
I thought there were more questions that would take a little bit of time and that we were not going to hurry on the streets, if I remember correctly, but maybe I'm not remembering.
Okay, she had made a map, so I thought it was coming up as to be presented for a public hearing to be set. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I guess I just misunderstood the intent, but the map is prepared. So if you're wanting to go ahead and set up the public hearings, I think we still need to put it in front of staff, and they're small. There's really only 2 revisions to our plan. The rest is incorporating Bentonville's. And I'm sorry, I don't have it ready to show.
Yeah, I'd say I don't see an urgent need to get in a hurry. So if we can maybe get past the next 2 meetings, maybe we consider it for the 3rd meeting from now, be the first one in April. Does that sound right? Does that work okay, Lorraine? Or maybe a dog bark that would approve it?
Sure, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
Let's plan for it then. All right. And Donna, I did not forget about you because I have to stop by and sign some stuff. So With that, we do have a motion to adjourn, a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Is anyone opposed?
Didn't hear the second. Who was the second?
It was John.
Okay.
So I don't hear any opposition, so we will adjourn the meeting this evening. Thank you guys for your participation and see you next month. Thanks.
Careful, more snow coming in about an hour.
Absolutely. See you guys.
Cool. Thank y'all.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe and warm.
Hey,
Stay warm and
new
stay safe,
iPads
everybody.
rock. Those new iPads, they're legit. We should have had those.
Are they
a long time ago.
good?
Well,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you
Yeah.
finally got, good stuff from us, Joey.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
y'all.
Yeah.
Everybody stay warm and stay safe.